The day started like any other until a crisp envelope showed up on my doorstep stamped HOA violation notice. Inside was a laundry list of fines: improper fencing, unauthorized security system, and even aggressive landscaping. It was nonsense. My fence was within county code, my cameras were legal, and last I checked, mowing my lawn straight lines wasn't a crime. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. I wasn't about to roll over. I showed up at the next HOA meeting, notice in hand. That's when I met Gregory Tate, the so-called inspector. He strutted around in khakis and a clipboard like he was some federal agent. He loved the sound of his own voice, reminding me over and over, "You'll be fined until you learn to comply." The fines weren't small either. $250 here, $500 there. Then came the threat: "Keep this up, and we'll move to seize assets." He said it loud enough for the room to hear, as if humiliating me would make me fold. But what Gregory didn't know was that I wasn't just another homeowner. I worked internal affairs. My job, day in and day out, was investigating fraud, corruption, and imposters who abused authority. And this man fit the bill perfectly. The more I looked into it, the worse it got. The HOA bylaws didn't give him power to inspect anything without advance notice. The so-called violation codes he cited didn't even exist in county records. And the kicker? Gregory wasn't even a licensed inspector. He was just a board member with a badge he had printed online. I started documenting every bogus notice, every threat. I set up cameras to catch him when he re-inspected my property without permission. Sure enough, within days he showed up again, snapping photos over my fence, jotting in his clipboard like he was building a case. I stayed calm, even when he slapped another fine on my door for non-regulation garden stones. But inside, the trap was already set. I'd spoken to the sheriff's office, laid out the evidence, and confirmed what I suspected. Gregory Tate was operating way outside the law. The next step was to let him walk right into his own downfall. And I didn't have to wait long. One afternoon, I caught him on camera trespassing in my backyard, snapping pictures of my shed. That was my green light. I called it in, then walked out calm as ever, HOA notices in one hand, badge in the other. "Gregory," I said, holding up the papers, "you've just written your last fine." He laughed in my face. "Or what? You'll complain again?" I pulled my badge from my jacket. Internal affairs. His smirk faltered for the first time. He had no idea that within the hour he'd be in handcuffs. Gregory's smirk came back fast, but it was thinner this time. "Cute badge," he said, trying to brush it off. "This is HOA business. You don't scare me." He was wrong. I'd already lined up the sheriff's office, briefed them on his fake inspector routine, and handed over the evidence. But I wasn't about to tell him that yet. I wanted him to dig his own grave a little deeper. "See, Gregory," I said, holding up one of the violation slips, "this fine doesn't exist under county or state law. Neither does this one or this one." I let the papers drop to the pavement at his feet. "So when you trespass onto my property and attempt to enforce fake ordinances, that's fraud. And fraud under the color of authority? That's a criminal offense." His jaw tightened, but he doubled down. "I've got the full board behind me. You're outnumbered. Keep pushing, and we'll take your house." I smiled. Funny thing about threats, Gregory, they sound a lot different when they're recorded. I tapped my security camera mounted above us. Its red light blinked back at him like an eye he couldn't close. The next move was his, and he made it badly. He actually tried to hand me another violation slip on the spot: non-compliant fence paint. The paper still smelled like printer ink. That was it. That was my probable cause. I pulled out my phone and called Deputy Ruiz, the contact I had waiting. "He's here, trespassing again, fraudulent citations in hand." It didn't take long. Within 10 minutes, a county cruiser rolled up. Gregory puffed his chest, trying to look official, clipboard hugged tight like it was a shield. "Officer," he said quickly, "this man is in violation of HOA rules. I'm enforcing the bylaws." Deputy Ruiz stepped out, calm as stone. "Sir, can I see your inspector's license?" Gregory froze. His eyes darted to me, then back to the deputy. "I don't need one. I'm HOA authorized." "Not how it works," Ruiz replied. "Step over here." I folded my arms, letting him sweat. His words tumbled out faster, less confident. "Look, I was told by the board president to—" "Sir, you are under investigation for impersonating an inspector, issuing fraudulent citations, and trespassing on private property," Ruiz cut in. "Place your hands behind your back." The clink of handcuffs was sharp, final. Neighbors poked their heads out, whispering as Gregory was walked to the cruiser. For months, he'd strutted around like the king of the block. Now, he couldn't even meet their eyes. But this was just the beginning, because the investigation wasn't going to stop with Gregory. The trail was about to lead straight back to the HOA board itself. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe, because the story is only going to get better. The neighborhood was never the same after Gregory's arrest. The sheriff's cruiser hadn't even cleared the corner before the gossip spread like wildfire. People who used to glance away when I passed on the sidewalk now crossed the street to shake my hand. They'd been living under the same cloud, just too afraid to say it out loud. Gregory's fall cracked the dam, and internal affairs doesn't stop at the first arrest. We pull the whole thread. I filed my official report that night, submitting every piece of evidence I'd collected: fake fines, footage of Gregory trespassing, and the audio from my cameras that caught his threats word for word. I forwarded it to both the county prosecutor and my own chain of command. By morning, it was greenlit. Detectives subpoenaed Gregory's phone. The messages they uncovered painted the rest of the picture. He wasn't freelancing. He was carrying out orders straight from the HOA board. The president, the treasurer, and two other officers were all in on it. Their texts were explicit. Make it painful for him until he leaves. Stack violations until he cracks. If he resists, we'll move to lien his house. And worse, they admitted to orchestrating property damage enforcement. When the warrants dropped, it was a sight to see. Sheriff's deputies rolled up in force, knocking on the doors of the very people who once held clipboards over our heads. The president tried to bluster her way through it, insisting she had legal immunity as an HOA officer. That earned her a pair of cuffs quicker than Gregory had. Charges piled up: conspiracy to commit fraud, impersonating a public officer, harassment, and attempted extortion. Gregory faced additional counts for criminal trespass and falsifying documents. The board president, treasurer, and their co-conspirators were each slapped with felony indictments. Neighbors who'd been silent victims lined up to testify. One elderly couple admitted they'd been fined $200 for feeding stray cats, when all they did was put out water for birds. Another family showed photos of their fence literally torn down after a bogus violation. The abuse was systemic, targeted, and malicious. The civil suit hit fast. My attorney filed for harassment and intimidation, false citations and abuse of authority, emotional distress, punitive damages, and reimbursement of legal fees. The court found the HOA's enforcement operation to be a willful abuse of power designed to intimidate homeowners and coerce payments. The judge awarded a significant monetary judgment in my favor, plus full coverage of legal costs. The inspector's credentials were revoked, the HOA's insurer paid the settlement, and the board was forced to adopt strict oversight measures. The victory didn't just compensate me, it publicly exposed the scheme and put every HOA in the county on notice. As for Gregory, he pled guilty to impersonating an inspector and conspiracy. He walked away with probation, community service, and a criminal record that would follow him for life. The president and treasurer weren't so lucky. Both served short jail sentences before being barred from any HOA activity permanently. The day after the verdict, I stood in my driveway, hands on my hips, looking at the neighborhood that once tried to run me out. My Porsche gleamed under the sun, parked exactly where it belonged. Neighbors waved, kids played. Peace had finally returned. They thought I was just another homeowner they could bully into submission. They didn't know I was internal affairs. And I don't just play defense, I take corruption apart piece by piece. They sent their inspector to find me. He left in handcuffs, and their entire HOA empire collapsed right behind him.